Hey friends, I'm Scott Hanselman. This video is to talk to you about how I used and upgraded my Ubiquiti or my UniFi networking equipment. I started small a couple of years ago and I slowly moved up. There'll be links to the blog posts below in the descriptions. I did sign up for an affiliate thing a long time ago with Ubiquiti, but I never actually turned on the links. So there may be some Amazon affiliate links here, but I don't have a relationship with the company where I'm getting any kickbacks. This is just me telling you how I like their equipment and what I ended up setting up. The stuff can be a little confusing, so I'm trying to walk through that. I've also borrowed some equipment from my neighbors to show the spectrum of Ubiquiti and UniFi and also Amplifi, their consumer gear, the spectrum of that equipment. So to start with, there is a thing called an Amplifi. This is a consumer level mesh network system, much like an Eros or one of those systems. It comes with this, and it comes with two of these little mesh points, these little rabbit ear mesh points. These are really actually kind of very creative because you basically use this router. Sorry, bear with me, my right arm is not working effectively right now. And then these are cool because you just plug them into the wall and then they are mesh points. So you might put this in the center of your house, and then one of these might go on the far end and another one of these might go on the other far end, and it duplicates your network. It repeats your network. And what's nice about it is that if you want, you can have only one SSID, one wireless network that shows up in your list of wireless networks. In the old days, I used to have multiple routers, one on one side of the house and one on another. But now we have protocols and systems by which we can roam. So we have 3 different devices that will each put out like the Hanselman network, and your phone or your laptop or your iPad will roam cleanly between these mesh points. Multiple access points, one single SSID. It's really nice. So that is a great little consumer device. You set it up on your iPhone or your Android phone with Bluetooth. I recommend this for non-technical parent. Good stuff. Okay, that's Amplifi, consumer level. Then moving up into the kind of the next step, there's traditionally UniFi gear. This is a UniFi cloud key. This is basically a controller that runs the software. This is a little confusing because there's a UniFi security gateway and a UniFi cloud key, and they really ought to be the same thing, but they're not. And there's a lot of confusion on the internet about what the difference is between these two devices. There is UniFi network controller software, which you can run on any machine you have lying around. You can run it in the cloud. You can run it on your own computer if you have a Windows machine or a Linux machine running around. But this thing, the UniFi cloud key, this one has a hard drive in it for video cameras if you want. There's also a small, tiny little one. All its job is to run the controller software. You connect to it and you talk to it with your web browser, and that is the controller software. Again, not required, super convenient. Then the UniFi security gateway, which is basically a firewall and a router. This USG, as they call it, has the WAN and the LAN, so you connect the wide area network out to your network provider, and then the LAN inside of your house. This would be the thing you would get DHCP on. And then from that point, you go and get involved in the whole the whole UniFi collection of devices. There's little routers and beacons and all kinds of stuff, and then you adopt them like a big, happy extended family, and they all join your system. And it all comes off of these 2 devices. I found this very confusing, knowing I needed to buy both a thing to run the controller or the actual physical gateway, the UniFi security gateway. Again, this was how it started. So when I graduated from the consumer to the more professional, I got that. But then a new thing came out that made that easy. Like the UniFi people recognize that that's confusing, and that the prosumer, or the consumer who thinks they're a pro like myself, and they came out with a thing called the UniFi Dream Machine, okay? The UDM. And this UniFi Dream Machine is basically one device that is a wireless hotspot, it's a router, It's got the WAN connection there. It's really fast. It's actually got a quad-core processor inside. It's pretty. It's easily managed. So you, sorry, again, this arm isn't 100% right now. It's easily managed like this. So it's kind of a bridge on the way to the professional stuff. So if we kind of go here, let me switch sides. If we go left to right, consumer, prosumer, professional, and it kind of goes up, 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 up. Now, the Dream Machine is nice because it runs the controller software. This replaces the USG, the security gateway, and runs the controller software on it. The only thing it doesn't have is a hard drive if you want to use the UniFi camera system. So it does not include that ability to do that. Okay, so I had this for a while and I've written about that on my blog, and this is great. For most people, this is a wonderful, wonderful way to get really high quality networking gear into your home. Then you can go and get all these great features and mesh points. This is a wonderful mesh point. It actually just plugs into your wall. That's an American plug there. Covers the outlet exactly, lights up, looks pretty, and then gives you a wireless hotspot. Sprinkle a bunch of these around your house and you're living the dream. Or you do something like this. This is called a USW Flex Mini. I've got one of these on my desk and my kids have these in their rooms. So if you have wired internet around your house, this is a lovely device because it runs power over Ethernet. You can get power over Ethernet injectors or devices that have power over Ethernet, and it'll go and light up. Now, I outgrew this. I work from home and I've got the whole family on Zoom calls all day long. I've got me on Teams. I also pushed several terabytes of video that I produce for Microsoft in my day job upstream. I need absolute 100% reliable internet. I also gave a number of keynotes at big conferences, and I can't have the internet go down in the middle of that. Because of this, I needed to upgrade from the higher end prosumer Dream Machine to what is called a Dream Machine Pro. And this is now what I've done. I've upgraded to this roughly $400 device. This is interesting. Okay, so this is the Dream Machine plus a hard drive. So I can have my cameras. Their hard drive goes right here. All right. It also supports WAN 1 and WAN 2, which means I actually have 2 internet providers running into my house. Now, that's certainly a blessing. Not all of us have the ability to do that. In this case, I have both Comcast and I have a fiber or a FiOS fiber optic provider. It might seem a little bit excessive to you, but it's the fiber optic is just $60 a month. And in doing that, I've got reliable failover internet, and for the price of $60, which for me is valuable given that I'm running a business here, if the internet goes down, it just fails right over, and all it has to do is go out for an hour or so, and I really feel like I've got my $60 of value out of that. So I can have both WAN or wide area network 1 and 2, and I understand that they're working on link aggregation, which means you could actually take 2 incoming internet connections and have those come together. That's something that's either being worked on or in beta right now. The other thing I wanted to point out is that if you don't have the ability to have reliable dual internet like I have been blessed to have, there's also 4G options. So you could potentially have a fast internet, and then when it goes down and you just need to be connected, there's a UniFi 4G, or you could tether a hotspot, or you could somehow connect a hotspot and have an option there as well. So we do sometimes find ourselves in situations where we could have 2 internets. And it's actually, given that we're all stuck at home right now, it's more useful than you would think. Now, once you then adopt into this ecosystem, this UniFi ecosystem, you can get these different hotspots. Some of them are quite expensive. Some of them are much cheaper, like the ones I showed you. And then you can also grab a switch. This is a super fancy switch that I did not get because it's expensive. But if you hit compare here, go down and look at some of these lighter switches, which are great. You can find them in the couple $100 range. And this option here where it says PoE, super important, because if you've got PoE, power over Ethernet, you can do something wonderful like this. I've actually got a Raspberry Pi with a PoE hat on top of it. And that allows me to plug this in to any of my PoE-enabled UniFi devices, and it just turns on. There's no actual, micro USB connection to power this. Everything's power over Ethernet. And I mentioned cameras a couple of times. What's fun about that is that the cameras themselves can be, let's see if I can find a camera. The cameras themselves, like this G3 Flex, which is also very inexpensive, can run entirely on power over Ethernet, okay? The thing that they're well known for is their software. So this is an internal view of my own personal network, and I can click on my Dream Machine Pro. I can view exactly what's happening. And then if I look at the switches, what's nice about that is I can see exactly what's connected to each switch. I can see whether it's using power over Ethernet. You can see all these ones with pluses in front of them are using power over Ethernet. And then all these ones that are orange are not running necessarily at full speed, which may be suboptimal. And then you can see I've got both my WAN 1 and my WAN 2. Actually, that's not. That one's WAN 1, and then the other one is that one. This switch here connects down to the next switch, and I'll show you that when I give you some videos. So basically what I wanted to do was put basically a rack mount system into my house, which was going to be a big deal. And I was a little concerned about that because it's one thing to have a network that's under your desk somewhere, but suddenly I've got rack mounted equipment, and I thought this was going to be a big deal. So what I ended up doing was buying a bunch of crap on Amazon. I want to just run you through that real quick, and then I will show you some videos of the process. I bought this this enclosure. It's effectively a mini fridge, kind of like a mini fridge you might see in university, and it mounted on the wall. I put it way up in a closet. So I got that mini fridge. Okay. Then I bought a coupler, which allowed me to have the wires that were coming out of my wall enter into the back of it. And then I had a nice front panel, and it's 1U. 1 unit is a height. That device that I got was a 12 unit box. So I can put 12 things that are 1U high. So as I'm going and Googling for stuff, I'm finding 1U or 2U. I bought a couple of these, and that's going to help me organize my wiring. Here's a hat for my Raspberry Pi, just to show you that there's lots of PoE or power over Ethernet things that you can buy. I bought some nuts that you end up using to hold your 1U or multiple U devices into your rack mount. Didn't need to buy those because it came with it. This was an interesting thing. It turns out that, of course, Ethernet is not a cable, as it is a protocol that can then go over a kind of cable. So we like to say that, oh, this is an Ethernet cable. Well, this is a RJ45 connector with twisted pair Ethernet Cat6, and then we use Ethernet over the top of it. But there's different kinds of cables, and one of the WAN connectors on the outside of the Ubiquiti Dream Machine uses this thing called a SFP. So I needed 2 of these to bridge between the Dream Machine and the switch. It's basically a fiber optic cable. I had to cut a hole in the wall in order to get the wires out that were pulled when I had the house built. So I bought a mounting bracket, so when I cut the hole in the wall, I could mount that. I got some nice cabling plastic sleeves to hold the cables to make them look nicer. I also got a thing like this to make the cables come out of the wall and look better. And then I got a shelf that I could go and put things on, because I also have a Synology, which is a little NAS, a little network attached storage device. And since it's not a rack mounted thing, I needed a place for it to live. So I got a little shelf. Then I wanted a power adapter. And that little power adapter, this is like a power strip. That's actually a 1U power strip. Folks that are fans of rack mounting like to say that once you rack mount one thing, you're going to want to rack mount basically anything and everything, and that's kind of true. So I have found myself very excited about rack mounting things. So to sum up, Dream Machine, switch, 2 couplers, and then did some installation work. So let's cut to some video of that process, and I'll narrate what was going on at the time. Actually, before I forget, let me just do a very brief Home Networking 101. Maybe I can do a full Networking 101 video in the future, but just an idea of like the average house has a modem of some kind. And a modem is just a word means modulate, demodulate, converts from one format to another. It's often a bridge, and that bridge takes you from DSL coming into your house, or coax cable coming into your house, or fiber optic coming into your house, and it puts it into some kind of a, cable-y format. And oftentimes they'll give you a modem, and that modem is actually a lot of things at once. It's a router, it's a Wi-Fi hotspot. The most important thing for you to think about when you're updating your home network is, what is the thing that hands out IP addresses? Networking people will say, who's responsible for DHCP, Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol? Who hands out IP addresses? So if you get something like this, and then on the back there's usually a yellow dealie that says WAN. You plug the internet from the outside into here, and then you have internet on the inside. What you need to be thinking about is that this is a multifunction device, as is the one that the internet provider gave you. And then when we use something like Ubiquiti, we're kind of breaking up the responsibilities. It can get a little confusing though. If you buy something like this, the Amplifi, and you have the thing on the back that plugs in the internet, where did that come from? And what you can end up doing is you take your modem that you got from the cable company or whoever, and you plug that directly into this. And it's almost like, it's called double natting. You're basically having a network behind a network. Because when you buy internet from an internet provider, what you really want is a cable of some kind that has external internet. Just like when you buy a phone number on your phone. If I buy a phone number for my cell phone, I want a number people can dial that will get me. But when you have network address translation, when you have a network inside a network inside a network, it's kind of like, well, there's a number that people call, but then they say, well, press 1 for Scott, press 2 for whatever, and then they have to bounce their way inside. So I've got a little diagram here just to very briefly give you a sense of what you want to think about. And on the right-hand side, I've done two things here. I've said Internet 1 and Internet 2, but let's just assume you have one internet coming into the house. What is that internet, and what is the router that they gave you? They gave you usually some cheap router. If they gave you a cable modem, then they might support what's called DOSCIS, and this is a standard that will basically allow you to not use their equipment. And another option, though, is if they gave you a device like this, is to ask them, can this thing stop passing out IP addresses? I don't want a Wi-Fi router. I'm going to use another company. I'm going to use my amplifier, my Ubiquiti. I just want a bridge. I just want to go from this. I want to just come in, cable, and I want to go right out, and then my IP address, the external address that I bought, comes out of there. And then this lovely smart device that they gave us becomes dumb. You really just want a bridge. I have two providers. I have a cable modem, and I use this just to pass the IP address along. I don't use this for DHCP. It is not responsible for passing out IP addresses. Then you have to ask yourself, in your house, in your new home office, whatever, what is the thing right here that we're going to use to pass out our IP addresses? What is that going to be? Let's go ahead and make that really giant to make the point. There we go. Is this going to be a UniFi or an Amplifi? Is it going to be a Netgear? It doesn't matter, but this is the thing that is basically in charge of handing out addresses for your internal devices. For me, that can be a UniFi Dream Machine, or in my case, the UniFi Dream Machine Pro. So that's basically this. Then I have this external IP address that it gets me out of the house. And then inside, I usually have a, oops, that should be actually 192. I have an internal IP address. So I have my home office, I have the kids or whatever. But I want to make sure that you're clear that if you're not careful when you purchase something like this, you could get yourself in a situation like this, where you've got the UDM behind some crap router. that you really don't want. And again, that may not be what you really asked for. What you want to avoid is this has an external IP address, this gives an internal, and then this gets an internal from this one. So when you want to get out, you go bounce, bounce, bounce. You don't want that. See if you can make sure that you're getting an Ethernet connection directly into your new UniFi device, whatever it is. That's kind of good advice just generally. Okay, back to our regularly scheduled program. Okay, so many years ago, I wired the house for a home network. This is in 2007. Doesn't matter that it was that long ago, but the point is, the house was being built, so we had the ability to put the wires in the wall. You can hire someone to pull these through your wall, you can cut holes, and there's all kinds of ways you can do it. I just happened to have the walls open so I could go and do this. This is about 13 years ago, and I put in a bunch of wires. Now, coax was the thing, that's like a cable modem that everyone liked at the time. That was a mistake. So these two bundles are not even used. But I've got a whole bunch of RJ45, what are called Ethernet wires. That's these kind, throughout the walls, okay? And this is the closet underneath my stairs. When the wall got put in, I bought this panel that sits there, and then there's those wires coming in, right? Coming through the ceiling, and then they start plugging them into stuff. This is janky. This is actually a switch that I've stuck to the wall with some Velcro, and then I've got my cable modem down here, and this was janky for many years, but at least I labeled everything, so I know what's what, okay? The goal here is to take this closet area here and put that new box, that new cabling box at the top. So this thing arrived. It's a big mounted rack, and I unboxed it, and now I need to measure how tall it is to see if it'll fit in the closet. Now above this wall-mounted networking system are these wires, those wires that we mentioned before. They must be in the wall somewhere. So I've got to figure out how to get them out of this wall. I'm looking for where the wood is to see if it's hollow, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a hole up there, and I'm going to pull those wires out of here. Make sure, and I'm going to mount this thing so I can put the box there. Walls in America are weird. Here I'm looking for the wood that I'm going to use to mount the box to the wall. Now that I've found the wooden studs, I've marked them with a red pen, and I'm going to mount with a big lag bolt this big metal support and hang the box from that. Quick double check to see how tall this thing is, and then a quick double check to see the height of the ceiling in my closet. All right, now I get my lag bolts and my socket wrench and make it happen. Looks good. All right, now I take that and I hang it up there with the help of someone who's got two arms. Looks like it fits. Now we cut holes in the wall. Here I'm going to take what's called a 3-gang plate, and I'm going to cut a hole here with just a hacksaw. I'm wearing a mask because there's insulation in there and it's not safe. Unfortunately, I needed to make a 6-gang hole a little bit wider because the wires are way in there. So at this point, it's a bit of a tale told in pictures. Here I pulled the wires out of the wall, and then I pulled them through the box, and you can see that they're still kind of in a chaotic state. So I put them inside of the plastic sleeves and kind of braided them to keep them safe, and then threaded through that the holder that will then go into the back of the wall. I also organized the old coax cables that I'm not using, and then slowly moved the devices into the rack by just screwing them in. And then, as you can see here, it's not quite as organized as I want it to be. I think I'm done. Way up in the sky here in the closet, we've got the UDM up here, Comcast and Ziply, 2 WANs. We've got SFP cables connecting to each of the switches. This switch ended up not being used, so that's opened up for the future. I've got a Detroit coupler here. I got another one down here, so I've got room for another 24 ports or so. Looks like I'm using maybe 22. That one's a V1, so that's free. I know you might think that the cables are not organized, but I think they are. They make me happy. And then here we've got the Synology. I'm probably going to get rid of this. I think I might use something like this and put it here or put it in the back somewhere. But it looks pretty cool. Let's look at it from a different angle. At this point, I think it's pretty tidy. 2 switches, 1 unused, a UDM, and a couple of the couplers. This particular feature is absolutely extraordinary and worth pointing out. This is the iPhone application that you can go and point at a QR code on any of your newer UniFi devices. And once it recognizes them, you get an artificial reality, an augmented reality view of each port and what's attached to it. You can see my Xbox there on port 4, the DirecTV on port 9. It's absolutely bananas. It makes it a lot easier. Now, I've labeled everything already, but using this AR feature is just one more way that you can keep track of your network, and another reason that I think that the UniFi stuff is just so extraordinary. All right, so in conclusion, I upgraded from a Ubiquiti Dream Machine, a UDM, to a UDM Pro. Then I got the UniFi switch, which gave me power over Ethernet that let me power all of my little tiny devices as well as my cameras. The UDM Pro is a 1U that went 1 unit inside of my larger 12U square. Again, I'll include links to all of those things in the description at the bottom. All I really needed was the UDM and then a switch. But I also chose to get those Detroit Packing Company couplers that allowed me to have a little bit more tidiness. And then I was able to buy some little patch cables like these. These are great little cute patch cables. I got 40 of those from the Ubiquiti store. One last tip I want to offer you: if you already have wires in your walls, I was given this suggestion by Stack Overflow's Nick Craver. This is a Klein Tools network finder, and this is really kind of extraordinary because you can plug cables into the tool and then into the finder, and you can see what the strength is, see what the length of it is. And if you lose a wire, which I actually did, you can go and look for it by putting in searchers up to, I think it comes with 6, and then you can basically put them around your house and say, is that wire number 1? Is that wire number 6? This was great. I actually got that at Home Depot. That's a Klein Tools networking device, and that was really, really fantastic. So again, no real association with this company, Ubiquiti, other than I'm a fan. I think it's great stuff with a minor understanding of networking. And honestly, I'm not even that handy, so a minor understanding of how to plug wires into other wires. I think you will be able to upgrade your home network with some success. I wish you all the best. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments. And if you enjoyed this channel, please do subscribe. And as the kids say, smash that bell.